Okay, going to call to order the annual organizational meeting for the Comprehensive Plan Review and Implementation Committee. Now that we have appointed a full capacity committee to get going, so I'll call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. Go around the room and introduce ourselves. And my name is Chris Farmer, right here in town, 1792.
I'm Terry Palmer. I am a seasonal resident. I live on 17 in Aquasset. We've had a camp here since the 50s. So now we used to come up on weekends, and now we're up here for the summers.
Right, I'm Carl Coles. I am a full-time resident and as well as the deputy CEO for the town of Rangeley.
Wendell Case, I'm a full-time resident of Rangeley and Quimby Pond, and I am a member of the Board of Selectmen.
I'm Steve Hewins. I am a full-time resident of Rangeley as well from 1983 Main Street. The last 2 years I've been building a house, and now we're 90% done and been living in it for 2 years. But I've been coming up here for many years too, like you. My wife Sam has had a camp on the Ball Mountain Road in Quasic for about 60 years. Wow.
I'm Joe Rhodes, town manager.
I'm Brett Parker. I've been in town. We've had a second home up here for the last 4 years. I retired from the biotech world after 38 years. Last January, we moved up to a solar home in Stockton, moved up here full time in May. So this is my retirement gig from the biotech world. My wife said, "Get out of the house and go do something." So here I am.
Thank her for us.
Okay, so first item of business, elect a chairman for the board. Take any nominations.
I nominate Chris Farmer based on the institutional history of the committee.
Second. Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor, Chris Farmer, chair. Still passes. Okay, vice chairman. Any nominations? Volunteers.
I'll volunteer. No one else does.
Okay, Steve Ewins. Any others? Okay,
I'll second it.
all in favor of Steve? Motion carries. Okay, secretary, the funnest job of the committee. Any nominations? Secretary, your job will be to accurately record the minutes, the information, so we can get that, because I understand that the new chair of the Board of Selectmen has requested that there be minutes provided on a monthly basis.
In
for all
addition
the
to
minutes.
updates quarterly,
Yeah.
preferably in person.
I volunteer.
Okay, excellent. All right. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of Wendell and Chase?
Who was the second, Mr. Chairman, on that? Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second. Vote was unanimous?
Yes.
I abstained.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, date and time of CRIC's meetings. We want to set a specific time, date and time.
What's
Today we
the
met
thought process in terms of like how often?
Well, I would say minimum, probably monthly until we get RFP back and we're ready to get going. Then I would say probably twice a month, if not. It all depends, to me, it all depends on, well, my philosophy as a chair is that really the point of the meetings is to get back together and try to put stuff, and everybody comes in informed and ready to work. Nothing, I've presented to planning boards all over the state, nothing upsets me more when I walk into a planning board meeting and I watch a planning board member open my package when they sit down. So if everyone's willing to make that commitment to say, yeah, we're gonna do our homework, then I think 2 meetings, 1 hour a month, or it's gonna be more than sufficient to keep the ball rolling and moving in the right direction. And then we're still gonna have probably, I would assume, we're gonna have some public hearings and those things, which are gonna be at other times.
And there's not gonna be any subcommittees or anything like that, so all the work's gonna be done through this.
Well, we really have 4 members plus 2 staff, so I mean, I don't know how much more you could subdivide.
I was mainly making a point. with
Yeah.
that.
Exactly, I agree with that. Does anyone disagree with that, we just, so should we look at, go ahead.
I just had a comment to make, to the point of subcommittees, not formalized subcommittees, but I know in past comprehensive plan work that I've done, especially, for example, the historic component or things like that, you can ask organizations within the municipality to facilitate that, if anything, because they do have A, B, and C ratings for historic buildings if they have updated data, so that the committee itself doesn't have to do all the work that's already been done by particular interest. The economic development group might have some interesting input on some of the elements of the economy as well.
Good point. I believe also too that we'll be able to, my philosophy with a group such as this is we're all, capable, intelligent, professional people that we put together a tasker list. We all grab the stuff that we're gonna do and then bring it back and go over. And that's how we're gonna get this done quickly and efficiently. So everyone takes on different pieces and then we bring them back collectively, go forward. Do any public hearings that need to clarify. But most of the information I think should already be out there. It's just for most of the comp review. The question is, the biggest problem with comprehensive plans throughout the entire state is that they're technically the skeleton of what should be for all planning and code enforcement. And if you went to 50 municipalities, probably 49 of them, you'd have to brush the dust off the last time the plan was up there. So I think we could talk about when we get to the goals part is that's really what we should try to do is work very judiciously to get our compliance in order with our comp plan with everything else. And there's a mountain of work to do there to do that because it has that.
So I have a question. Are we going to be doing a new comprehensive plan in the near future? This is 12 years old now.
I mean, yeah, it was done in 2012. I mean, I think per state law, you're supposed to update
The guidance is every 10 years.
every 10 years. So, but the question that I think we can talk about if you want to take a couple of minutes too, we're a little off. But what I would think is that we have enough brain power collectively in this community that we're not spending 70 to 150,000 for a bunch of consultants to refeed us the information we already have. It's just going to be a question of putting it into action. I think you think about how's the world changed since 2012 to 2023, and I think probably the biggest area it's changed is one is technology and what we have access to technology here. I just remember in 2012 when I was at Saddleback that we were just starting with like white phones with Scott, those type of things that, and now the whole world's changed there as far as access to information and access to communication. These earlier versions of the comp plans, you're talking about notices in the newspaper. I mean, we don't, there's a lot of changes there. And then significantly for us, we've got is post-pandemic, the adding of fiber, which is a lot of the work that was done by the Economic Development Group. So we have fiber pretty much going to be everywhere, if not there yet.
Satellite.
What's that?
Satellite.
Both.
And satellite.
That's what I have.
Yeah, wait,
Musk.
right. So I mean, in 15 years, things have changed. In 2008, when I came here, we ran a single DSL.
Right.
Shot it up from the town hall, from the movie theater to the top of the mountain, and that was the internet at the lodge. So, I mean, things have really changed there. Our makeup of our community has changed a lot. We've had a lot of people that have, part-time residents that have moved here full-time. It's changing the makeup. We're seeing a lot of growth with that. We're seeing the challenges of workforce housing, all these things. So I think those are areas we're going to need to do some significant updates in
Right.
to bring it there. But I think the core bones and the core values that were established in the comp plan about what Rangeley is and historically and where it goes is I think we've got the headlines. I think we just got to work on some of the chapters to get them a little bit more shored up. And I personally think we can do a lot of that with our team and what we have for resources. So
What resources do we have? Do we have?
Very good question. So when you get through some of this business, or we can talk about it now, I guess if you'd like to, I have a packet for you that contains responses to an RFP that the town released for planning services. So in that RFP were general planning services that would provide help to the code enforcement team. And then there were some items in there specifically about comprehensive plan assistance. So you can tailor that to whatever fits your needs. You can take a big gamut, or you can tailor it down to what you think you need as a team. I'm going to request that either the full committee or a portion of you help me with interviews. I'd like to interview as a panel. It doesn't have to be everybody, but should be 3 of us at least. So you can help me select a planner to help with all those functions. The main one would be comprehensive plan to the degree that you would like, and then also they've been asked to give us feedback or proposals on form-based code or design review standards, basically to protect certain areas of the town in terms of what type of buildings are built in those areas. So some of the scope of that RFP won't really fit into the comp plan directly, but tangentially, of course, it does. So the resources we have carried over, I think, 25,000 from last year specifically for this, and in this year's budget, there's 20,000. So it's an aggregate of 45,000 for planning.
and when we did the town of Wyndham's comp plan, when I was involved in that, and that was 20 years ago, that cost about $100,000. So it's very clear from what the town's allocated and budgeted that we're not in a position, I don't think, I wouldn't start from scratch. It'll take 2 or 3 years. I think we just work on this, but the key part, the implementation part is what has always lacked and lacks in most communities. So that's where we can take some of this and say, okay, let's fix these issues, but then let's get the ordinances and these things shored up to coincide. Because per state law, whatever the comp plan says overrules what an ordinance can say.
Right.
That's right.
And we've had a couple issues that have popped up over the years, especially more so towards definitions, I think. I think that's the hardest part. Utility services, light and heavy industrial, all those things. So it's really up to the group. Do you want to start with twice a month until we get our feet underneath us, or do we want to go once a month, or what do you guys like to do?
I would like to do twice a month and just get the ball rolling personally, because it's been a while since, it has been gathering dust, as most of them have been. So that's, and also the other thing that you all need to know is I'm not going to be here in the winter. So I'll probably have to join you this way electronically. And I think that's fine, isn't it, Joe?
That is fine.
Yeah. So.
Is that approved in your
It
policies?
is.
Okay. Because we had to make some special changes at school board in order to do it.
Oh, you did?
So, yeah, so it is approved, Joe?
It is. I think the state law changed somewhere in there that it doesn't really matter why the person is not present. So if you're not present, you can zoom in.
We should just double check and make sure we're all set, because I know Madam Chairwoman is very particular about making sure we follow all rules. So I just want to make sure we have a thing that we make sure that Terry has the ability to vote.
And
Promote
participate, not
and
just watch.
participate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I'll do my work on my end, what I can do.
Yeah.
And online I can do things,
and you're here until when?
End of October, 5 to 6 months. I would have liked to be on other committees, but you have to be a resident, so This was the only.
This is the one we revised, so you could have up to 2 members that were taxpayers, but not residents. So we still have room for one more, right, Joe?
No, this one's full.
It is,
Yeah, it shall consist of 5 members,
okay,
one of which is the code enforcement officer, which in
right,
your case, you have the deputy CEO has been appointed, and the
Right.
CEO has agreed to participate outside of the committee. So 3 taxpayers, 1 select.
okay. Good, all right, we'll figure that out. If Joe, if you can get that confirmed for procedure before the end of October.
Wendy has a question.
Yes,
I am okay meeting whenever, monthly or twice a month, that's fine with me. I think one of the things that we could do first off would be to kind of task some of the, there's actionable steps in the 2012 plan, and they're allocated to particular departments or boards or so forth. Request an update into the actionable steps that were assigned to that particular department or board, whether they've been accomplished or whether that actionable step was passed because they didn't think it was applicable anymore. And that happens. I mean, it definitely does happen, but any facilitator for updating the comp plan, and that's what all the RFPs were, is a comp plan update,
Right.
not a new generation, would do that inventory anyway. So I think that that would be a really good starting point, because that will give us a little bit of the framework of the appetite for what was, important in terms of actionable steps historically, and maybe set a little bit of a platform on where to go for next steps. Or if one element like attainable housing or affordable housing maybe didn't get enough traction, to drill down on that as the need has increased over time.
I don't disagree with that. Joe, do we have a version of this comp plan that's in editable form, or is it just?
We do, yeah. And it's
Okay.
also available, for those who don't have it in front of it, it's on the website.
Yeah,
electronically.
download for the
So we have
website.
a Word version that we can
Good.
pull up and put on the screen and go through.
So going along that corollary, let me propose this. Let's put together a tasker list. And basically, we'll take from the Word doc, every one of those action items and make them a tasker list.
Sure.
We'll send those out to, Joe can send them out to ones that apply to the applicable departments to get updates, unless you've already done that.
So we do have, it's a spreadsheet that has these items in it. It's circulated through some of the committees. It hasn't made it full circuit yet, but I can bring that to you at your next meeting. I'll take an inventory of that.
Can that get loaded,
I can email it to you.
well, actually, what would be good is, I've been doing a lot of work with this in the past year, Google Sheets.
Mhm.
And if we can load that, take that Excel and convert it into Google Sheets, then it becomes a collaborative spreadsheet where, with the right permissions, everyone on the committee can go in, add stuff, and in live time, realistically, all of us could be on there editing the sections that we have, and it updates. And it keeps a list of every edit that has been done all along.
Right, and my only word of caution there is, I would advise having a quorum doing that. If you're outside of a meeting, a quorum shouldn't be doing that simultaneously.
Well, obviously, yeah, but I
I
mean,
didn't know what your intent was there.
yeah, no, my intent is not, I'm just saying from a technology standpoint, it can be done, but when we're in there, no one can really see what the other's doing.
Okay.
It's not like you're all in a room,
All right.
but you're all able to go in and say, for instance, Wendy says, okay, I'm gonna work on the task list in chapter 7. Wendy can be working on chapter 7, Steve can work on chapter 3, Terry could be on 10, I could be on 2.
Gotcha.
And we're going through and getting the information, so that when we get together as a group, we're then able to.
Yeah, it's a digital inbox, basically,
Yeah. And that can be available, and since to me, it's transparent, everything that we do, that we can set it, that it's publicly visible.
Sure.
They just can't edit it. The only ones that can edit it would be on the committee. And so that way, the whole public can see in live time what's going on with that.
Yeah, we should be able to link that to the website, right?
Yeah, I just think that might be the most efficient way, and this, now that I understand Terry's gonna be 6 months away, then, you know, Terry's able to work on that from wherever your summer home, winter home is, and, it's a win. So, is anyone opposed to that structure, that
No.
if Joe can get me that, I will set up a thing, and, Joe, the other thing that I would like is that Wendy probably already has one, but can you set up an email address for each of us?
I could look into it.
Because I'm not, because if you can, then we can make Gmail addresses, but any of the work that's done on this committee is all open to Freedom of Information Act. And so I use a separate email for anything I do on a group or a committee, because that way if it gets subpoenaed, it's just that email.
Right.
It's not, because I have other emails, I have other legal clients that stuff, but, so. I know it's a pain for I to have another email, but it works pretty well, because then we can set up access, we can set up those pieces. If you don't, we
You have
can
to
make
have a
a,
Gmail account anyhow to get it.
yeah, you have to have a
Google
Gmail,
Sheets, right?
yeah. So I don't know if the town's email is based on, is it based on Google or not?
I don't think so.
Outlook.
Okay,
Yeah.
so why don't we do this, why don't we take each of our legal name and then put .cric at Gmail. And use that for those. If everyone wants to get theirs set up and then send them to me, then I'll add you to the spreadsheet. Does that work?
What did you say, Chris? Legal name CRIC?
Well, whatever you want, you can just be wendy.crc at Gmail.
Okay,
or
I'll think of
Chris
something
dot
creative.
It can be,
Kidding.
as long as it has a CRIC.
How do we get that information to you?
You can just, email it to my personal email, which is christopherfarmer@gmail. christopherfarmer@gmail. And then once those are all established, Joe, I'll send you a group email with everybody, so that way agendas and your team can then be able to disseminate information to us. I find it's helpful if you have a smartphone, you can just make a separate one, and then all that email for that committee just comes in there. Is anyone opposed to that concept?
Nope.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, otherwise you're technically open, if you get an aggressive lawyer on the other side says, I want every email you got on the committee, you've got to sift through, and then technically they could subpoena your whole account.
Joe, could I just use my town email?
You may.
You can,
Yeah.
if you've already got.
Yeah.
That's why I said before, yeah, if you've got a town. The only question when you gotta find out if you can log, you have to set up a separate,
I have Gmail for my personal.
you have to set up a separate Gmail for the town,
Oh,
Just
gotcha.
for-
just to access.
Mhm.
It's pretty easy.
Okay.
And then you can flip flop. So let's set the next meeting.
I would, before you do that, Mr. Chairman, I would offer that, I don't know if it's more convenient or less convenient for folks, but we could be available during the day. If that works for everybody. Just throwing that out there. Doesn't have to be a night meeting by policy or by law.
Well, this 4 o'clock worked okay today. Does this work for everybody normally, this date, time?
Happy hour.
We have to be that.
That's right.
So when would you guys like to meet next? Next week is the 5th Tuesday of the month. How many days notice do we need, Joe? 7 or 5?
I think it's 3 by our posting policy. Public hearings are 7 by statute. So at least 3, but a good rule of thumb is a week. I mean, you like to give a week ahead of time. For the first one, as long as you've got 3, you're all right.
Do you want to meet next week, the 29th, and get going? Because we're not going to get a lot done today. And then we can start scheduling after that. The nice thing is it's a fifth Tuesday, so there's no other board meetings.
That works for me. 4 o'clock?
So,
Do we wanna go? Do we wanna go more than an hour to try to get some of the stuff done, or we wanna go just an hour?
I'm okay with more than an hour, just to like lay the base, basically. I
Okay,
agree.
so why don't we do a planning meeting for 90 minutes?
Okay.
And then we'll have a motion at 5:30 if we decide we wanna extend for, I don't want people to feel that they have to.
Right.
It's just kind we do that with school board, if we set a time, if we decide we're gonna extend it, basically, if not everyone's in agreement, then we stop.
That
People have
works.
other things. So let's say 4 to 5:30 next week. Joe, is this room available then?
Yes.
And then we know what we're gonna do after that.
No, we can talk about it now if you want, I can always do the 4th Tuesday. I have, the 4th Tuesday, I always have water district at 5, so it's always gonna be a 45 minutes to an hour. thing. And the second Tuesday, I always have school board, which starts at 4. So Tuesdays aren't the best for me. Want to go the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays, I could do that. That puts back to back for you, Wendy, right? Because you guys have,
It's fine. Yeah, I don't mind things.
How many people say that?
Well, the only-
When they're productive.
the only challenge is like, for instance, when there's a Monday holiday,
Mhm,
the Board of Selectmen will meet on the Tuesday.
mhm. But if it's 4,
If it's
Then-
4, you're
then
not
it's
gonna meet
6.
much before, so
right,
unless there's a public hearing, then you meet at 5. So if we set 4 o'clock,
I
is
can
4
make
too
6.
early for people? Does that work? I'm just trying to be comprehensive of the staff, because the staff is here all day.
No,
and-
4 is fine for me.
yes.
Does that work for you, Steve?
I think so, yeah. I'm still trying to think about the 29th. I don't know why my calendar is not synced with my computer, unfortunately.
Probably
Well, let us
gone.
know
It's
if
gone.
something pops
I
up.
was trying to think.
Yeah, mine, I may have conflicts eventually, because my wife's work schedule is 6 weeks at a clip, so.
Right. Well, look, this doesn't have to be set in stone. I just thought, let's just try to get going.
You know, it's,
So why don't we say, the 5th and the 19th for, at 4 o'clock? So that gives us 3 meetings out. And we'll schedule those for just 1 hour. Unless we determine at the 29th that we need longer. Anyone opposed to that?
No, sir.
Okay.
I thought the 29th is gonna be a problem for me. There is a thing at it's related to golf. It's the Mingo Springs Final Gala next Tuesday. That's like the award ceremony for the golf, and I'm playing today in the 10th week. So
Okay.
just as it's 29th.
What time's that at?
It's like, you know, I mean, like now. For
I'm just asking, do we want to try to go earlier? Do we want?
you know, I'm.
We could go, Monday night, because Monday night is not select board meeting, it's the 5th. Monday.
That's fine, that's not.
How does that work for you, Carl?
I think it should be all right.
Is the 5th Labor Day?
The 4th is Labor Day.
4th is later, so you're gonna have select board at
Yeah.
6. So,
But I'm
So you're
probably
talking
not
about-
gonna ask staff to be here on the holiday.
on the 4th, right? The holiday, we're scheduling for the 5th, which is Tuesday.
Oh, okay, I thought you just said Monday.
Yeah, we just talked.
No, the next Monday is the
28th.
28th,
Right, you're gonna do that, 28th next Monday.
to help, so Steve doesn't have to miss the party.
So on the 28th to 4:30 is airport commission,
They meet in here.
and I meet with it here.
How late do they meet?
Usually it's about a half an hour, 45 minutes if they're feeling frisky.
You guys wanna say 5 o'clock, 5 to 6:30?
Sure.
Does that work for you,
That-
Joe?
That's awesome, thank you.
So that's August 28th.
August 28th will be our next meeting. Starting at 5 o'clock. scheduled till 6:30 unless we determine we need to go longer.
Okay.
And Joe's gonna deliver to me this week the Google spreadsheet. Everyone's gonna give me their emails. I'll get that set up and we'll bring up, Joe, can you have staff arrange to print the current version we have in a big enough size we can all look at of that spreadsheet?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, I
And
get
then
you.
we-
Big one.
Yeah, just give us a big one with a hard copy and then
Yeah.
we don't really need to do much on it between now and then, but that'll be our kickoff and we'll just go right down through that task list and start assigning and figure out what we gotta do. And if you can, if you get a chance, I don't know if you meet with your staff between now and next Monday, but just letting them know that we're gonna be going through that and looking for information and updates.
Mhm.
So that way we can, and there's no judgment there. It's 11-year-old plan.
Right.
I'm expecting little to
All
none
right, yeah.
on any of these.
So, I mean.
So I don't want anyone to be defensive about it. It's more of where are we at so we can figure out where we need to go.
It tells a story too, though. I mean, if things aren't actionable or no one's taken action on it, might mean that it's not important,
Correct.
you know?
So we can assess that. So if you just let the staff know that we're gonna be, that's kind of.
Yeah, they're pretty
First
aware
steps.
that the committee's meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the things in there are committee board based, there are some staff items in it, but it's a lot of committee based stuff, which has
Right.
got a lot of notes in it. But, yeah, I mean, we'll take a look at it. One of the things, again, if, I don't know if I can bring this up now, but I don't wanna keep these planners waiting much longer, so I don't know how you wanna tackle that.
I'll help interview.
Okay, if I could have just a couple of you, that would be.
Yeah, I don't have.
Great, perfect. Because that'll be very.
Well, what do we haven't, you defined the scope, but we haven't defined the scope yet, right?
And I'm not looking for help defining the scope, I'm looking for a panel to help me interview. Because only a portion of this is going to help, right, this committee directly, the rest of it's gonna help code enforcement, so
Okay.
they'll be on the panel, one of them.
So this is just we're one piece of the
You are.
RFP.
And thank you for understanding, it was a little complex, but I would prefer to have you help me pick those folks for
Okay,
the comp plan, because you're gonna be working on it right alongside us, so.
So I'm not sure I understand about the planning services. AvCog used to help us when AvCog was here.
Yep.
They used to help us. So are we looking for like mainland?
I'm
or
glad you
something?
brought that up. So AvCog is in the mix, and AvCog is not competing with these other two firms. They're not in competition with them. We have an agreement with them. We're members of AvCog on the board. We're not trying to create competition. They're going to help us, no matter what the outcome is. I had put out the RFP because AvCog didn't have a planner on staff back then. They do now. It's changed, but I've already rung the bell and released this. And there are some things that are kind of niche, like the form-based code is kind of a niche
Right.
exercise, although they do have a new planner, full-time planner in AvCog that may be able to handle that. So that's kind of why I would like some of your input on this while I interview, just so that I don't miss any opportunities and cross any lines. So.
And how will the planning services help us? How will we work with them?
So they can gather, it's a very good question, they can help gather some of the existing data, transportation data, housing data, all of this stuff. They have access to that. They also have experience with these type of things, in terms of community outreach. And the planning, so your questions about planning for comp plan specifically?
Yeah, when we go forward and we look at the action plans and things of that nature, are we gonna be giving them what we're looking for and they're going to research and give us some answers back? Or-
In some cases, yes. In some cases, they can just give you general guidance about what they've seen in other communities, what they might suggest. We look at or how we might approach certain problems, or whether they're relevant still, those type of things. In terms of general planning, that's something code enforcement and I am looking forward to help with planning ordinance stuff.
so I see the LK proposal, it's 47,000 to help with the comp plan. And it's an hourly rate for ordinances and general plan services is an hourly rate. So we determining whether or not we're gonna spend the 47,000 for the civic process.
Make a recommendation to the board of selectmen.
You're gonna help me whoever helps me interview is going to help me make a recommendation for selectmen. And having, again, that's why it's important to have you folks on this committee, because you can tell me, we don't need all that help in this area, we just need it here.
Right.
and then I can funnel what we're looking for, get approval for it, spend the money.
I guess I'd have interest being involved in the interview as well.
Okay.
If we want two of us, if you only want one.
Well, so let's talk about that for a minute. 2 is fine. Steve and Wendy, I think have already volunteered. The whole committee is fine. But 2 is plenty, and that will probably help facilitate us doing it during the day. And it's less reporting requirements and all that. We can just get together because you're not a quorum and we can continue to discuss whenever it's needed. Notice or things like that. But I'm perfectly willing, and that's not to say that I'm trying to circumvent that. Perfectly willing to do it with all of you in this format.
No, that's fine, I mean,
But we only have so much time, so it would be better, I think.
You know, to maybe clear up some confusion in the RFP that the town of Rangeley submitted, and they did receive these 3 proposals, and I understand AvCog is already, you know, we do have a working relationship with them. There were 5 items. The first one is assist the comprehensive plan review and implementation committee with any necessary revisions or updates of the 2012 comp plan, including attendance at 8 meetings, in person preferred. The town wishes to conclude this task and submit the final draft to the state of Maine within 12 months of contract signing. So that is the segment of our work, pretty much. And so when we do our inventory for where we are with our current comp plan, and we figure out, you know what, the mapping is fine, we don't need any help with that. But AvCog can do the mapping for within our contractual agreement that won't cost any extra money. And there's also a $10,000 grant available with AvCog too, correct?
Potentially, we have written a letter of support, the board has supported a letter of support to apply for that grant to help with things like this. Yes.
Right, and there's some things that the 3 proposals, they're very different,
Yeah.
You know, AvCog, we have a relationship with, they do have really good mapping capabilities, you know, they're very good at updating ordinance language, so it's in compliance with state, which is super important, you know, especially for grant funding purposes, and our comp plan is really important for grant funding too. There's another one, it was North Star, I think, young planner, young planning group. They didn't really submit a proposal specific to Rangeley. They kind of gave some examples of their scope of work for other municipalities and projects. And then LK was a former planner, full disclosure, town of Freeport. Donna Kane is the proprietor of that company. And she's done a lot of comp plan work, and obviously has been a town planner. So, but she's left and she does independent, you know, consultation work with municipalities throughout Maine and New England now. So they're very different. So I guess we just have to figure out what do we need and who's gonna fill that hole appropriately.
So do we need to have our initial meeting first before you interview?
Yeah.
You want to interview these people, move the process forward, right?
Yeah, I'd like to get, you know, not have them waiting in the wings much
Right,
longer.
right. So do we have time to, when we meet next, the 28th, to talk a little more detail about this? Before you have the interview?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I-
Okay, well, why
yeah.
don't we hold that off until
Makes
next week,
sense.
because we're, you know, kind of orientated, you know.
Yeah, I guess, to me, I'm just worried if we put the cart in front of the horse, you go and pick somebody that we don't have really figured out what we need. Because I mean, 2 of these are pretty much about the conflict, so I guess that's
That's kind of where I was leading, you know, we can talk more about this next week.
Yeah, let's put that first on our agenda for
Right,
this week.
I would agree with that.
So-
That's what I was thinking.
Good points. All right, we gotta make a motion to adopt the rules of procedure of CRIC meetings, Robert's Rules of Order. The motion,
So move.
second. Okay, all in favor?
Motion
Carries.
carries, Madam Chair.
Carl. Okay, town policies and training. We just need to read all that, or we need to go over that today?
That's the discretion of the chair and the committee.
Everyone know how to read?
I do.
Okay,
I wasn't the reason.
We do ask that you, once you've reviewed it, that you sign it, turn it in, we'll put it in your
okay,
jacket.
we'll bring those back for next week.
Yeah, we'll put that in. the-
Everyone, please read for your homework and bring them back signed to pass in. Okay, any other business to be brought forward at this time? Seeing none,
Hold on, is there anything we need to do to prep for the next meeting? Is there anything you want us to?
I want you to do all this,
Besides that,
I would say it's not necessarily my job as chair, just to facilitate, but I would think that a good use of our time would be read over the comp plan if you haven't, especially the action items. Read over these three RFPs, because they are three completely different approaches.
Are those in?
Yes, they are. And then come prepared to discuss, so that when Steve and Wendy go to the interviews, they feel like they have a good sense of where the committee's at.
And if you could think of any questions individually that you might ask those folks, because I want to be very careful when we ask all the same questions of all of them.
Yes.
Bring those to the meeting and then we'll make a list.
So Joe, are you gonna try to schedule them for the end of next week? Because if you did that, then you'd be able to come back on the 5th and say, this is where we think we're going. It's a lot.
That is a lot.
You let us know how quick you want to go.
Maybe after.
Maybe the
Probably
19th,
after Labor Day, right?
maybe by the 19th, you'll have interview done.
Is there any, are there any concerns that your staff know about that are just, you know, you hear them over and over and over, that the townspeople are concerned with, that we should look at a little more, you know, a little difficult, what do I say? Like, we may not be aware of some of those things. I mean, I have my own things that I know that I am concerned about in our area, but I don't, you know, I don't take any phone calls about them. So I don't know if we should focus on any of those types of action items.
I can't think of anything related to the comprehensive plan directly that we take for calls here. I'll think about it some.
Yeah.
I think I know where you're going with that question, Terry. You're kind of talking about the visionary concept of the plan, and is there something out in the stratosphere that has bubbled up that, you know, that maybe isn't in the, you know, older version of the plan? A lot of times when you have a facilitator that helps you navigate putting the plan together, they do vision meetings or workshops, and you know, you set it up and you give public notice and it's a public meeting and people can come in and just, you know, and you can also do surveys, which normally they do too, and they do it in paper and they do it online. It's getting a whole bunch of information. What you have to do is create the questions first, like what about the economy is good, almost like a SWOT analysis sometimes, but generally with comp plans, you start with problems. What are the problems? You don't figure out the solutions, you ask the questions about how you're gonna solve them.
What's really facing.
And that's the work of the committees within the town.
It's about issue identification.
Right, exactly.
So, and, I mean, we've had some hot button issues over the past 5 years with the marijuana ordinance piece, we had the short-term ordinance piece, we've had the cell tower ordinance piece, we had the
Solar.
solar ordinance piece. So I think it's pretty easy to pick up some of the things that have popped up. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have is our form of government, is that because it is a select board and all our ordinances require town meetings, and special town meetings to be approval, that we have to be careful on how we structure those, because it's really hard to undo them. And we had a lot of challenges with the Malbec code that, or whatever it was called, UBEC code that got passed, everyone, oh, let's pass it, and then afterwards, everyone's like, wait, you gotta do this now, you gotta do this now, you gotta do this, because
Right.
nobody read it,
Yes, yes.
including me. So,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
seeing
that could
some of
be-
that in chapter 38 that was just passed.
That could be something that, you know, would be worth, you know, a conversation in terms of a comp plan. Is it worth exploring the form of government? Is it worth exploring having a charter? Is it worth exploring those things? Maybe people are fine, maybe people don't, you know, want to change, I don't know. But you never know until you ask.
Well, it's, you know, it's a forward-looking document, so we
Yes.
have to look out 10 years.
Yeah.
The past informs the future to a degree. A lot of the stuff is, like you said, by the wayside, maybe it's not gonna be as at the forefront as we look forward. So that's gonna be the challenge, I think, is trying to look at this thing more proactively toward the
Correct.
future. And one thing I just wanna get in before we depart, should we all bring our calendars too for next week? So we should be looking out for Terry throughout the end of October and picking those dates all the way through, right?
Well, I'm retired, so I have some flexibility, but I appreciate you
Well,
saying that.
yeah, but you're gone at the end of October, that's the.
I have my
I'm retired
I
too.
got my calendar, Steve, right here.
Yeah, I don't. I gotta get my, I gotta sync these stupid things up. 'cause I-
Throw it in the lake.
I want to make a comment to follow up on what you said, Wendy, about the vision statement. I have always loved the vision statement. It speaks to me. One of the things that it says in there, this isn't word for word, is about one of the things that we, the taxpayers wanted at that time is for Rangeley not to change that much.
Right.
Because we like it the way it is. We want to progress, but we don't want to become something that most of us don't really feel like we want. We like the slower lifestyle. We like the dark skies at night. And that's one of the things that, you know, is near and dear to my heart is the dark skies at night. And that's something that I'm seeing not happening around the lakes. So that's just one aspect of something that I think is a concern. And, you know, you may know of other things, I'm sure you do, Joe, and your staff may know of other things that we need to focus on, but I hope that our vision statement is still something that we believe in.
I don't see that changing, honestly. You know, it's more the mechanics of how are you gonna make that come to fruition and still accommodate the people that live here now and in 10 years.
And I think the big piece of this is I think we can talk about this more next time, is what kind of an eye are we gonna look at this through? Are we gonna
Right.
say, part of me wants to say, you know, there's a lot in the comp plan that's fine of how it works in those pieces. The question is, do we pull stuff away, like you said, that hasn't been dealt with in 10 years and isn't likely, so we're not there? And that the biggest problem we had is when this comp plan got passed last time, I stood up at every selectman election thing and said, you've got to implement within 18 months of passing the comp plan, you have to have your ordinances in line.
Right,
And it never happened in 11 years. It's never happened.
that's unfortunate.
So that part to me is, we can chase a lot. I think the core vision and those pieces that are there, I don't think we need to really ruffle a lot of feathers on that. I think we really need to go through, look at the tasker list, look at the pieces that were supposed to be done, clean those pieces up, and then get down to be focused on, especially when you're looking at with this RFP, is getting the ordinances cleaned up that are in compliance with the comp plan, so that when we're going forward, we're not having lawsuits that happen because definitions don't line up and people have one opinion versus another. And puts us in these inconsistencies that can cause problems. I mean, our code
100%.
enforcement folks, they're on the front line. They need to have a good support system behind them, which is a strong comp plan and strong ordinances that are consistent with the overall vision. So that way they're able to work in those pieces peacefully and without a lot of conflict, and that's pretty clear to people. And I think we have some inconsistencies that need to be cleaned up.
And the comp plan should lead the workload of the Board of Selectmen. It should.
And the end date for this production of this document is next
Tomorrow.
town meeting, no, next annual meeting or something, I don't know.
I think this document needs to be wrapped up and done pretty much by March, so that way it can be on the road and reviewed, so that it's voted on in June.
That's what
And
I
then
was trying to
submitted
figure
to-
out, yeah.
I think that
And
that's
it won't be
completely
until
doable.
September or so after that before the state approves it. They drag their feet, so.
Okay,
I
and
think it's
then-
doable, I do.
oh, I
By
definitely
March.
think it's doable.
We got
I
a
just
talented
wondered
team here.
What
I-
it was,
no doubt.
I didn't know that.
It's gonna be a lot of work. It's gonna be a lot of work.
We're ready.
I think we all kind of feel the same way, so that's a good feeling, you know, we want to get it done.
Okay, so review all those policies to bring back. Joe, will you find out why we have to do all this paperwork if we don't?
I'm guessing there was a stipend if you got that. Verify
Really?
that. Yeah.
Take my Bitcoin.
Could be a good time, maybe not.
All right,
Changes every day, right?
all right, nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. 4:49.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe, for taking notes.